Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Hurricane Francis 5 years later. I'm Nick Lully. Can you believe it? 5 years ago, we were chasing probably one of the largest hurricanes ever to strike Florida. Not the strongest, but definitely the largest, causing hurricane and tropical storm force winds to cover the entire state and even Georgia, all the way from its landfall point in South Florida. And we covered it from all aspects. We went to Melbourne, we went to Palm Bay, we went to Cocoa, we covered the Space Coast, the First Coast, Volcano Beach, Fernandina. All of those places hit hard by Hurricane Francis. Hurricane Francis will probably be remembered as, in this decade at least, and this probably even century, the largest hurricane to ever impact Jacksonville, not directly but indirectly, from outer bands, causing schools to be closed for a week and power outages to last even longer. Vinny Lully was along for the ride with me, as well as some of our former crewmates, and now here's his take on Hurricane Francis 5 years later.
Thanks, Nick. And remember, everyone, this is our 5th year anniversary of Hurricane Francis when it came ashore down in Melbourne. And if anybody remembers, we're going to be showing you different clips coming up, but 2 News Now was just cutting their teeth on hurricane hunting and covering the storm and storm coverage. And back then we had a much greener crew, we had a bigger crew, and but it was some exciting times. It was a very exhausting time. Probably some of the best hurricane footage of any news company or any going around. It was an exhausting 2 days. We started out covering all the way down in Melbourne, where the hurricane, which came ashore really in Fort Pierce, but just right outside of Melbourne, we were literally had to be extricated out of Melbourne because of the dangers of it. But we were there for, I mean, as telephone poles and signage was coming down and such, literally coasted back into Jacksonville on fumes because there was no gas stations open. There was curfews everywhere, and we got back to Jacksonville and continued our coverage basically through the next day, and even as far as Amelia Island and Fernandina Beach, where we actually encountered a water spout coming ashore. Great footage, great time, and I can't believe it's 5 years, but I hope you all enjoy the footage coming up of Hurricane Francis, and it sure has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Vinny, for that report. Of course, we still are remembering Hurricane Francis 5 years later. There was also a few other hurricanes that year, Florida being impacted by 4. Of course, our best coverage was during Hurricane Francis, which probably impacted the First Coast for the most damage-wise and the longest. Now, here's some clips from down in South Florida, sort of near where Hurricane Francis hit. Let's now look at Cocoa and the Melbourne area. Now, even though those were the closest points to actual landfall, we did see some very strong winds, heavy rains, and damaging waves that actually took some people's houses and even some logs down into the ocean. Let's go up more towards the First Coast. Here's Volcano Beach in St. Johns County. And we're not stopping yet. Hurricane Francis even impacted as far as the northernmost county in Florida. Let's go up to Fernandina Beach, where we saw a water spout due to Hurricane Francis.
Fernandina Beach! The wind is so strong! Again, it's whipping sand
extent of our own coverage. However, we can tell you that indeed Hurricane Francis impacted as far north as southeastern Georgia, where they saw winds about tropical storm strength and rains that were even heavier than they've seen in many years. Now, as we continue to move into our own hurricane season, we now are in the peak of it. We're approaching that peak now. We will be expecting to see some more hurricanes this year. Will they head towards Florida like Francis did? We are seeing a very similar pattern to that 2004 season, with an El Nino event setting up, causing some of those hurricanes to steer towards the East Coast, like Francis and Jean did back in 2004. Now, the hurricane season doesn't end until the next 2 months, 2 months from now, basically, but who knows what will be impacting Florida or the rest of the United States. You can stay here on 2 News Now if you want to get the latest information on that and other news. This evening, 5 years later from our Hurricane Francis coverage, a bigger operation now than we were then, but still the great coverage you can count on. I'm Nick Lally. Everyone have a great evening.